Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of our Agents of Change series presented by State Farm and SAD. As we celebrate National Distracted Driving Prevention Month, these segments are created to help parents coach their young drivers on their journey to safe driving. Distractions continue to be a leading cause of teen crashes, so we must all do our part to keep teens safe behind the wheel. We're thrilled to have an all-star panel with us today. Please join me in welcoming our panelists. We have David Arce from Michigan. Live from New York, Ken Courtright. From Texas, we have State Farm agent Dale Johnson. From Colorado, please welcome Jesus Cruz Navarro. And lastly, we have Pierre Granger from Virginia. Welcome, everyone. In this episode, we're talking about technology and the unique challenges it presents in creating distracted teen drivers. I'd be curious to hear what you see as agents when it comes to distracted driving. David, let's start with you.
Yeah, Bailey, thanks again for having me on this call, or having us on this call. It's such an important topic all 12 months of the year, not just April. We're focusing in April because it's Distracted Driving Awareness Month. And man, I drive like 20,000 miles a year, and I continue to see distraction all over the place. Just yesterday, I was returning from Northern Michigan, and I literally saw a driver driving like this with the phone right there. And so, you don't want to be a distraction yourself in alerting that other driver, but it's like, every time I see a distracted driver, it reaches every age spectrum, from brand new drivers, what look like very young drivers, to even older grandma type drivers. And so it's just shocking that it's still so prevalent in hitting all ages. And it's kind of like when you see that distracted driver, like so blatantly distracted driving, it's like, like a mouse, if you see one, there's like 8 or 10 just trying to hide it. And that's what's scary. That's super scary to know that so many, there's still so many distracted drivers out there.
And especially with the teens, that's a great point, Dave. Especially teen drivers. I mean, the temptation of looking at your phone. You got to, for some reason, you got to see that text. You want to answer that text within a certain amount of time. Combine that with the lack of experience. That's dangerous. I always tell my son, when you get into the car, try to put your phone away. Why? It's a distraction. Okay. We don't have to answer that text right away. All right. But we know that it's not only is it a temptation, but it's, I feel like some of the teenagers don't really understand that they are driving a machine. It's not like driving into like a video game where you can crash and then, you can just all of a sudden, restart. You don't get second chances, So, so let me give you an example. My son, right? He was his first time driving, he's getting his permit. First thing he wants to do, check your mirrors, check the rear view mirror, right? Then the first thing he says, all right, where do I put this? Where's the slot for my cell phone? I'm like, it's called the glove compartment. Put it in your glove compartment. You don't need it. You're driving. It's time to, really teens really understand that the dangers of it.
Ken, I want to piggyback on what you said. Most people don't think about the consequences of distracted driving. And I want to kind of talk about that. The first thing, it's dangerous. I was reading some statistics, and it said that 9% of all teen crash deaths were because of distracted driving in 2018. That's huge, 9%. In addition to that, in America, car crashes are the #1 causes of death for teenagers. It's catastrophic. That's why 48 states have banned texting while driving. So it's dangerous. But in addition to dangerous, it's costly. Anybody know that if parents are paying for teen insurance, it's expensive. But with accidents, that can cause the premium to go higher. In addition to that, if you have multiple accidents, many insurance carriers will then say, we will not insure that household because of that teenage driver. So it's dangerous and it's costly. I was thinking while we were going through this, an experience that I had one time, and I want to share it with the group. As an insurance agent, I knew the danger and the cost effective with distracted driving accidents. So what I did as a habit, when I would get in my car, I would take my phone, turn it face down, and put it in my passenger side seat. Over time, I became complacent. And on one occasion, I stopped at a red light, picked up my phone, and started looking at text messages. So I decided to reply to one. And while replying, boom, I hit the car in front of me. I was distracted from a standstill stop where I eased my foot off the brake pedal and hit the car in front of me. Thank goodness the person wasn't injured and we didn't do any physical damages to our cars, but just that quick it happened. Just think if I was going 35 miles, 40 miles, 50 miles an hour, it could have been very, very different outcome. With that, I kept that in my head. I have two daughters that are young adults now, but when they were driving at age 16, they both had cell phones. I made a habit with them to take your cell phone when you get in the car and put it in the armrest where it's not tempting to reach over and get it. It was successful in my household where we didn't have distracted driving incidents while they were teenagers. I'll say the bottom line to it all is there are consequences for distracted driving. It's dangerous, where you can kill yourself or somebody else, as well as it's costly, where you have to pay more for your insurance. I would say to teens, as well as their parents, when you get in the car, put the phone in your armrest.
Yeah, according to what Dale and Dave said, also what Ken said, and a lot of teen drivers do expect, like 9 out of 10 teen drivers do expect a text right away within 5 minutes. And, it's kind of becoming a standard thing with teens, they want everything now. And according to a survey, 97% of teens did agree that driving while texting is very, very dangerous, but 43% still keep doing it. There was a scenario where I've seen personally where a teen driver was distracted. She was turning right, and she kept looking left, and she forgot, she was on her phone. She was talking to her other teen friends in the vehicle. She was very distracted. She was just focused on turning left, that she forgot to look right. And there was 3 pedestrians on the crosswalk walking towards the left side. That she kept going. She turned right, and then she ended up hitting the 2 of them, and one was in the wheelchair. Older man was in the wheelchair. Fortunately, the guy in the wheelchair did fall off. The other 2 were not injured as much because the one in the wheelchair took most of the hit. We had to stop and go back and make sure everybody was okay. Thankfully, everybody was okay. The guy in the wheelchair had to be transported to the hospital. But I do agree. Texting and driving has been a very major issue nowadays, and it's really good that we're talking about this topic because it is a big concern nowadays for sure.
Jesus, the whole team is bringing up some great points. I'd like to approach it a little differently, maybe a little bit of a historical perspective on this, because distracted driving has been around as long as the AM radio for you all that remember the days of the AM station and manual tuning and no search functions. And if you look at old GPS devices that were plug-in, or you look at thumb drives or VCR or cassette players, all these things have been around a long time, and they bring quality to the drive, but they bring distraction. And what I've seen as a State Farm agent is young drivers don't have the experience behind the wheel to get distracted very long. And so what happens is the technology that's really useful can become really cumbersome and put them at risk, and they don't even realize it. A reaction time for somebody under 18 and somebody that, like me, that used to fly helicopters for a living, very, very different. We're both distracted too, which is really something. It isn't about an age or a demographic. Everybody can be distracted. We paid out last year a huge claim where a distracted teen dropped her cell phone and at 45 miles an hour plowed into 2 cars in front of her, stopped at a light. The entire accident cost around $75,000 for 3 total vehicles. One, you can imagine what Dad was thinking. Thankfully, nobody was hurt, but there's a $75,000 insurance bill that somebody's going to pay. And it is all of a moment of distraction. She was texting, dropped the phone, looked down, and the light was red. So great points here on the discussion, but if you can take anything to heart, realize that once you set something in motion, you can never take it back. It is in motion and the consequences just occur.
Absolutely. These are all incredible points. And we know that phone use is bad, right? But we see firsthand the risk of this behavior on our roads every single day. Technology can also be a part of the solution to help us stay safe, though, right? So let's talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the technology in vehicles has come so far, and it's such a decision. It is such a huge part of the decision. So we, as agents, we hear from parents all the time. What kind of car should we buy our new driver? What kind of car? They want all the information, right? And so cars are really super safe, especially the new ones. And so what we guide parents in is really balancing the cost, the cost of that new car, the cost to insure that new car versus all the technology that's in it. And technology nowadays is really guiding towards collision avoidance and staying out of the accident in the first place versus collision awareness. And so, as far as technology has advanced a car, what has not been technologied out of, if that's a new word I'm allowed to make up, what you can't replace is common sense. And so we always talk to parents about trading off, technology versus insuring the car. We also talk about, nobody wants their teen driver to break down and have to get out of the vehicle and change a tire or more maintenance. So there's a lot to look at when you're researching vehicles, and it's a tough decision, and we tackle it every day.
Yeah, I never thought about how safe that first car should be. That's a fascinating point. And I know there are a lot of new technologies out there too. So how do these technologies work, and how should parents prepare their teen drivers for this new era?
You know what? That's a great point, because I still remember me driving my first car, but it was the conversations that I had with my father. My father always said, take care of your car, you will take care of you. So basically, what should you do? Have a good conversation. Before you get in the car, my father always reminded me, go around and walk around the car. Is there a small leak in the car? Is there a scratch? Look at those things, right? But the continuous conversation of when I first started is what I still remember to this day. So I think it's very important, when parents or even older brothers, older siblings, if they can keep speaking to that young new driver on the importance of what driving a car is. I think it's fascinating that when people get new video games, they read the instructions, right? And how to become a good person video. Do they read the instructions in the car to find out how the car works, what features are good for them, right? They just think going into the car, you drive, and it's going to take care of me. So, it's very important that we keep educating the young, not only parents, but I think any chance we get as not only business owners but caring people. When I see, let me give you an example. So one of my team members had a young son went to get his driving test, right? And he failed the first time. So I came in. I said, you know what? Let's take another driving test. I'm gonna go like I was the instructor. I'm not your friend. Okay. What's the first thing I noticed? He didn't drive. He didn't look around. So listen, go look around your car, fix your mirrors, put your seatbelt on. That's safety stuff, right? And the most important thing is confidence. Confidence that you can drive that vehicle. And confidence comes from continuing, developing very good habits. Very good habits, and that's the one thing. I'm glad that SAD encourages, this, because I wish I had this, but everybody had great examples.
Yeah, there's tons of features that any new driver might not know, right? Like you could be a teen driver with very little experience, or you could have 40 years under your belt, and there's still new features that come out every single year with every new model of vehicle. So Dale, what are some of those features?
Well, it's so many that we can go over, but I'll talk about a few of them. And they call it new technology for crash avoidance technology, which is great. There's where it detects hazards in the road. If you're driving, if a deer or something, it detects it. There are lights that move to that object to make it safer. There is a forward crash collision warning that if you're about to hit something, there's technology to warn you on that. There is adaptive cruise control, where you can set a distance as to how far you want to be before the car automatically starts braking. There is adjusted cruise control. So it's just so many technology, but I think it was David said, with all the technology, you still have to be engaged as a team driver because it cannot stop all accidents. So you have to have common sense when you're driving and look out for perils that can cause an accident.
You know, there again, some really good points. I'm bringing up the back here, and I'm going to do it a little different. I'm going to talk about the word culture and what culture means. You know, culture is something where you have to change your thinking. In naval aviation, we used to say the mishap you prevent is the one you never know about. You just did something, you saved lives, and nobody ever knows, and everybody goes home at night. And when you look at driving for all of us, it's a culture of safety. It's about a culture of understanding that technology is something for us to use, but not let it distract us. And I would ask everybody here in the room today, both adults and children, do you have the confidence before you get in a car to tell your teen friends, look, I've never been here before. I'd like you guys not to crank up the radio or distract me. This is the first time I've driven mom's car and it's really expensive and she trusts me. If you have the confidence to ask those questions of your friends before you get in the car, you're probably going to walk away and prevent a mishap. And it really is important to think of culture and using technology as a tool and not as something to distract you from your purpose of getting to wherever you're going safely. So I would say that culture is something that we could all work on all the time because technology is moving so quickly. All of these great features that the speakers are talking about today really are even moving faster, but we can't let them control us. We still have to get behind the wheel and make those safe decisions. And that comes down to culture. Do you have a culture of safety and really taking care of your passengers, or does that culture involve risk-taking?
Incredible points, Pierre. Absolutely incredible. All this new technology, lights, new sounds, to that young driver, again, that crash avoidance technology can really become a distraction. You don't know how to use it if you're not used to it, a total distraction. Is that right, David?
Absolutely. You know, Ken, we're all bringing up good points, and Ken brought up a point that's really hits home with this. And so did Dale. It's having that conversation with your newly teen driver. You have to have conversation with them about what technology is off limits while driving. And it's crazy that we even have to say this, but you have to say you cannot live stream, FaceTime, you cannot do video conferencing, Zoom calls while you're driving. But I think that message has to be sent early. It's when you're introducing that vehicle to the new driver and you're in the passenger seat and they're driving with you, you get to point out what they can and can't do, what they should be messing with at a red light or what they shouldn't be. Because I mean, you've seen some of the dashboard systems. They're as big as an iPad. And I mean, the new driver wants to be engaged with the technology. I think the first question for my daughter, who's 19 right now, the first question was, how do I Bluetooth my phone to the car? And it's not walking around checking the air pressure in the tires, Ken. It's not making sure you have enough fuel in the car. It's how do you Bluetooth the phone to the car is the first question. So, but I'm glad she had that question with me, and you know, we joked about it a little bit, and there's so much information. It's still number one, operating the car safely, and not allowing all this technology to fuel distraction, right?
Oh, yeah, Dave, I'm smiling and laughing because that was my son. That was my son. Like when we finally got, he's in the Navy now, so we got him a car, right? Well, he bought himself a car. That's number one. And that was his first thing. Hey, what's the Bluetooth setting? I'm like, are you kidding me right now? That's like, I gotta trust you to drive now. But he remembers the conversations. It's the conversations that we had about safety features, right? Technology is good, but like you said, Dave, technology can also be a detriment if you don't use it right. We talked about the conversation of what does each button mean. Go into the manual if you're not sure. The best advice I gave, to each and every person, especially him, if something doesn't feel right and you're not sure, pull over to a safe location as well. So this is all about the conversation about driving. So now you got technology, you got parents having conversations, whether it's parents, guardians, any adult that you're with. And I'm going to take 18s. I'm going to give you a challenge. Okay. How about you step up and say, you know what? I want to learn more about this car before I even get in. You understand the safety. You heard statistics on crashes. If I was a teenager, I want to know about that car. And if you're not sure, it's okay to ask. All right. And, it's one of those things where it's always going to come down to hands-free technology is not always a great technology as well. Like going back to the Bluetooth. All right. But again, have the courage to make sure you understand that vehicle. All right. And because as your teens, you're growing up. So that's your responsibility as well.
I agree with what Ken said. I mean, the safety features are awesome in cars days. We have lane departure. We also have, collision awareness. The good thing is, like, my sister has a 2006 Cadillac STS, and her vehicle has that feature. She was distracted playing with the radio. Everybody wants to play with the radio. And we're going over a hill, and, the good thing her car had that collision. And the vehicle stopped, actually started braking by itself. It's very cool that a lot of vehicles nowadays is very standard. The technology is very awesome. It is very cool to have it because it does assist a lot, like blind spots, alerts, and stuff like that. But at the same time, you have to be aware of the vehicle. You have to know your vehicle. Always make sure you always adjust your mirrors. Always look in the rear mirror. Look at your side mirrors. Be aware of your surroundings. Also, distractions. The radio could be distraction. People in the vehicle could be distraction. Just be very, very smart of what you do. And right now you probably think you're invincible. All of us were there one day, but at the end of the day, you have someone that loves and cares about you. At the same time, you have to be aware of other people too on the road. You can't hurt someone else. People want to go home. To their loved ones. So technology is very awesome, but I think at the same time, also make sure you know your vehicle and make sure how it handles.
And I think one of the things that we really need to discuss and embrace is the autonomous features or autonomous driving. Autonomous vehicles have been around forever. If you look at the Mars rover, you look at the high-tech fighter jets that land on aircraft carriers, you look at drone technology, you look at the technology that is out there, that's been around a long time. We're just finally putting it on the highways. But here's the challenge, again, for everyone in the room. Safety will never be outsourced to a computer, okay? Safety responsibility, and the drivers in the vehicle and the person in charge behind the wheel, whether their hands are on the wheel or not, will always be responsible by a person. Someone will always be responsible for the safety of whatever features are coming. And I think that if we look at autonomous driving, the blind system, all the blind lane, features, all those technologies are going to still be responsible for a human behind the wheel and the passengers in there to keep that car or that truck or that vehicle and their passengers to get safely from wherever they're going to their destination. So I think that's the key to a lot of the technologies we're talking about, is that it's not going to relieve us from common sense. And I think sometimes we think technology is the be all, the end all, and we're going to take it and then we're not going to have to be responsible. And I think that's the messaging I would send out to the listeners today, is to say that's still your responsibility, no matter what technology is helping you and how you're getting there.
Got that right, Pierre. As always, panelists, you've given us a lot to think about today. As we wrap up, I'd be curious, what's one piece of advice that you would give to teen drivers as they fight to stay distraction-free behind the wheel?
Yeah, I think my first bit of advice would be to remind our newest drivers that distraction takes all different shapes and sizes. And we're talking about cell phone usage today, but distraction is being drowsy, is eating, and passengers. I mean, it takes many different forms. And so as far as the phone goes, if you have a passenger, give your phone to your passenger. Let them navigate the road. You navigate the road. Let them navigate communication. And just be safe and smart. And I love that Pierre said, safety will never be outsourced. That is so true, Pierre. That was a great point.
Yeah, that is so true, and I'm glad you brought that up. And one thing I didn't, but I really want to talk about is making sure that if you on your cell phones there is the do not disturb feature. Use that, put it away. But the main thing, do not disturb in your head. All right. One thing I want to just remind teenagers: this is a machine that you're driving, and remember, your driver's license is a privilege. Okay, it can be taken away at any single time. So just because you have it, you got to do your due diligence to keep it. Okay.
And I want to piggyback on that and say that cell phones are distractive and they're alluring. They keep you thinking about who's trying to communicate with you. The best way to stop that temptation is put it out of sight. I would say to all the teens and parents, take your cell phone, as hard as this habit will be, but put it in your armrest where you can't get to it, because any distraction, as small as it is, it can cause major damage to you, your family, or someone else.
Yeah, I agree with everybody. My biggest tip for teen drivers is be courteous. I drive on the road, like if your grandma's on the road, be very cautious of your surroundings.
Great points. It sounds like I'm closing it up here, but that's okay, because I want you to think about something. From the moment you buckle in, just for a brief moment, when you buckle in, ask yourself what the world would be like if you weren't there or somebody in your car wasn't there. Just ask yourself that. Look around your car just for one brief moment, or think about if you were in the hospital and what mom and dad's reaction would be, just for a brief moment, and then drive as you're protecting those, and that take that responsibility very seriously. And you don't need to dwell on that, but just think about it for a brief moment and say, okay, maybe I'll not get distracted on this one, and I'm just going to get us from point A to point B, and everybody's going to be happy. And the mishap we prevent is the one we never know about. So that's it for me, guys. I think that's, great points today.
Yeah, great tips all around. I, again, want to thank our esteemed panel from State Farm, our true agents of change. I also want to thank you, SAD Nation, our followers, for helping us share the rules of the road as we celebrate National Distracted Driving Prevention Month. That's all the time we have for now. Be safe every trip, every time.